When I was little, I had a placemat that showed a picture-perfect coral reef. All the corals, all the fish, rays, eels, turtles, everything. And I thought, that must be the most magical, beautiful place in the world. And when I get older, I'm gonna go scuba dive coral reefs like that. And when I got older, I got my dive certification and started diving our local California beaches. And I learned that we don't actually have any coral reefs in California. We have kelp forests, which are also super cool and beautiful in their own way, but not the coral reefs that I had dreamed of seeing for so long. It turns out to go scuba dive those tropical coral reefs is a little bit more of a process, takes a little more time, a little bit more money, so that went on hold for the moment until a New Year's trip we did back in New Year's 2019 to scuba dive in Florida. And that trip was awesome. We did a slightly ridiculous amount of diving. I think the most tired I've ever been in my life was after doing a 6 dive day off one of those Florida reefs, but did a really cool different types of dives, including some really cool freshwater dives up in the interior of Florida, as well as some quasi-tropical reefs down in the Florida Keys. Those reefs, the visibility wasn't great, and the reefs had some damage to them, so it was really cool, but it left us both wanting to see the really good, pristine tropical coral reefs. We were also starting to feel a sense of urgency, since coral reefs are increasingly being damaged by warming and acidifying oceans, among other changes. And so what's the first tropical coral reef that comes to mind? Well, the one that gets talked about the most in kind of general popular media is the Great Barrier Reef. It's the biggest, you can see it from space. It's also had some really large and widely publicized bleaching events recently. And so that was the one that we thought of first. And we looked into it, and the more we learned about the Great Barrier Reef as well as other reefs there are in the world, we realized that while the Great Barrier Reef is known as the biggest, it's not necessarily the best. It's pretty good, but there are some that are even more beautiful. And as far as which one is the very most beautiful, I'm sure that is a hotly debated topic, but it seemed like there was agreement that the Indonesian reefs, specifically the reefs in the Komodo National Park area, if not the best in the world, they're definitely up there. And so 2019, we set about looking into what it would take to go to Komodo. Most of the trips to Komodo leave out of Labuan which was going to be quite tricky and expensive to get to. But we found one that looked great as far as what we could tell online. It's always a little bit hard to tell online. Looked like a good one though, and it left out of Bali, which was much easier for us to get to, and that was the Mermaid. July 2019, we ended up on the Mermaid 2, Bali, Komodo, back to Bali, Liveaboard trip, and it was a dream trip that just felt way out of our class at the time. It was both our first international dive trip, first Liveaboard dive trip, and just super excited to finally see these amazing, pristine tropical coral reefs. That trip totally lived up to everything I had in my head, all my wildest dreams, and then went way beyond. Clear, blue, warm water, corals, multicolor, vibrant, incredibly biodiverse corals as far as the eye can see, huge schools of every type of fish you've ever heard of, and then a few hundred more that I had never heard of, turtles, manta rays, eels, and a huge, amazing diversity of tiny little critters that weren't even on my radar before. So super tiny shrimps, crabs, nudibranchs, bunch of other just weird looking tiny critters. Amazing trip. Just absolutely blew us both away, and we figured it's probably not going to be repeated anytime soon. Not for at least a little while. However, we did go ahead and enter our email addresses into one of those things at the end of the trip where it says join our newsletter and we'll enter you into a drawing to win a free trip.
For the record, I'm the one that signed up for the email newsletter. Taters just ignored it.
I always figured those things, they probably don't actually give out the free trip because no one will know any better, right? But a few short months later, Matt gets an email. Congratulations! You won a free Mermaid 2 trip. We were so excited to get to go back and do it again. It was originally going to be summer 2020. That got postponed due to COVID. Worked out, let us do the PCT. Then it got postponed to summer 2021. Also got postponed due to COVID. Worked out, Matt was on the ECT. And then here we are, summer 2022. We finally made it back out.
And everything is going back in the suitcase because we have to relocate to the boat. Today was all about checking out the hotel, getting to the boat, and then we had a good long cruise to get over to Komodo where the dives start. And if you cannot see, Taters is just smiling so much she's going to throw out her smile muscles. Oh. And here's the room that I don't get to go in because Taters has taken over. And we are finally getting moving. And now the funnest part, seeing how Jen's seasick medications work for the first night.
Usually works pretty well.